You started overthinking it? Okay, your signature you just did now? Okay.
Building precision.
Oh, tell me about that a little bit more. So Miss Ann said, building precision. What do you mean by that?
Over and over, you get it better. You get it better.
Okay, so as you were doing your signature,
It got better and better.
it got better and better each time you did it.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
The Filster Enigma is a revolutionary holster chassis system that completely divorces your holster and gun from your clothing, giving you unprecedented concealment whether in sweatpants or formal wear. It attaches to your AIWB holster via the wing and allows incredible flexibility for your concealed carry. Get yours at the link below.
Pressure, too much pressure.
You,
Perfect.
yes, yes. Now, was it easier for you when you switched to the 3 lines instead of the 1 line?
was.
Yeah. So
I know how to follow the directions.
no. Actually, that's not on you. That's on me. I should have. I saw that. I just didn't notice it. Well, you're sweet. You're sweet. Well, but you did really well. And why do you think? It didn't take you that many times, did it? How many times did it take you to sign your name? 2 times, and successful.
When I did it with the 3 lines.
Right, when you did it with the 3 lines, yeah. So do you think you would have been successful if you would have started using 3 lines within 2 signatures?
Maybe.
I bet you would have been within 3 or 4. I really do. Okay, so who thinks they signed their name the most?
Oh, I probably did.
Yeah, there were a couple of you that were a good, some of you are almost 20 times, right?
Also because I didn't have any readers.
You didn't have your readers, right?
I put my readers out.
Right,
and it took
right.
me that
Okay, so hang on a minute. Miss Suzette, what did you say you did?
I didn't have no glasses the 8 times I wrote my name.
How many times you wrote your name without your glasses? 8 to 10?
8 without.
Okay, 8 without.
2 with my glasses.
Okay, so I have a question for you. Why the change? Why go from...
Well, I thought, idiot, you need glasses, you need cheaters, why don't you put your glasses on?
So did you decide to get your glasses out?
No, somebody said it. I was like, oh, that's a good idea.
All right, but you're the one that decided to drag them out of your bag and put them on.
Yeah.
So you made a conscious decision, right?
Yes.
Did any of you make a conscious decision to slow your signature down? Yeah, I noticed that, right? This is no correlation between slow shooting. I don't want any of you to think that, okay? So we're talking only about your signature right now. But you made a conscious decision at some point to not sign it the way you've always signed it and to sign it differently, right? So normally when we press, now we'll talk about shooting. Normally when we press the trigger, are you consciously, carefully thinking about that trigger press? When we were just up there, were you consciously, no, we weren't thinking about that, right? You were thinking about focus, you were thinking about my grip, you were thinking about all kinds of other things, right? Okay, but normally when we shoot, we're not thinking carefully about any one particular thing related to the trigger. We might be thinking about grip, focus, that sort of thing. But why don't we have to think about trigger when we're just normally shooting? Because it's easy to do. It's kind of like our signature. We just do it. We can press trigger without really thinking about it, right? Press trigger without thinking about it, right? But when we change the parameters of our signature, just like you can sign your name without thinking about it. When we change the parameters of our signature, normally you can do it without even thinking about it. But this time you had to because we put some different parameters on it, right? So just like this, we're going from an accuracy environment to a precision environment.
And 3rd grade all over again.
It was 3rd grade all over again. And Miss Sue's thinking, why wasn't I in the right class, right? I'm glad you're here. You might regret it, but I'm glad you're here. So the trigger press, we press that as an automatic movement normally. We just press without even thinking, right? Our signature is normally an automatic movement. So when we press the trigger as an automatic movement, the recoil bracing can happen, right? Yes. Because we're just doing it. Yes. We're not thinking about doing anything differently than we normally do. So, what thoughts do you have going on in those noggins ears? Because I got some sideways heads, and you guys are looking at me like, oh, what are some things that you're starting to think of?
Well, what I didn't think of the second time is the fact that you're supposed to take it back all the way, shoot, and then you're supposed to keep your eye on the sight and release it and resight. So being very deliberate with your
I love that word. You're being deliberate. Would you say you were being deliberate with your signature here?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a difference. If we change the environment we're in, we change the environment of your signature. Okay? Now we're changing the environment of your shooting. We're going into a precision environment, and it requires a decision. And that decision is a decision to do it deliberately or to do it with precision. Okay? So while we're on Watch It to Keep It Highway, right? Subconscious aiming city, watch it to keep it highway, right? Why are we on watch it to keep it highway? Because we don't have to consciously think about what? Think about our aim, right? So we're on watch it to keep it highway, and we get to what? The bridge of decision. So you can, now there's this troll that lives under the bridge. Remember 3 Billy Goats Gruff? You guys remember that? Some of you don't. All right, so you know that, okay, so somebody summarize 3 Billy Goats Gruff for us.
Okay, they gotta cross the bridge, and there's
3 Billy Goats, got to cross the bridge.
Troll's gonna get him.
Troll lives under the bridge.
And he's gonna get him, and
Yep.
and they trick him so that they can all get over.
Right. So on our bridge, we have a troll that lives under the bridge, and he will not let you cross the bridge unless you take an oath and you make a decision to go precision.
Oh, cute.
Get it? That's why it's called the bridge of decision. All right, so Mr. Troll under the bridge of decision, he allows passage only to those who make the decision to go precision. So you can only cross this bridge if you'll make a decision to go across that. Okay, fair? All right, so now, once we cross the bridge of decision, then we stay on what highway?
Mantra Mountain.
Watch it to keep it highway, right? So we don't have to think about our aiming. We're putting it there, and we're watching it to keep it. We go across the bridge of decision when we promise Mr. Troll that we'll take the oath to go to make the precision to go decision to go precision. Thank you. And then now I get to Mantra Mountain Tunnel. Mantra Mountain Tunnel. There's a tunnel ahead. All right, you want to hear a little bit about Mantra Mountain Tunnel?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm not going to go into the details in this, but in our as part of our humanness, there's 2 different motor control programs. I like to call one an automatic motor program and the other a precision motor program. The automatic motor program is the one where you're just pressing the trigger without thinking about it. The signing your name without thinking about it. That's an automatic motor program. Okay? A precision motor program is one where you're choosing to do it. And in an automatic motor program, you're usually doing it so fast, signing your name so fast, that you can't catch errors and correct them within that motion, right? So, and when we're shooting in an automatic motor program, we're pressing the trigger quickly enough that we can't catch an error and fix it. The bullet's already gone, we've already sent it. Make sense?
Yes.
All right, so the 2 different types of motor programs. So there's nothing wrong with an automatic motor program for shooting. We do it all the time. We can shoot accurately with an automatic motor program. You might even get to the point where you're like Mr. Brian Hill, Mr. John, Miss Steph, Mr. Neil. Plenty of people are able to shoot quickly with precision. So shooting precisely doesn't mean shooting slowly. Does everybody believe me on that?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because a lot of people say, well, I can only shoot precisely if I shoot slowly. That's not the case, and you'll see that today.
But the speed has to be one with which you can see your errors before they happen and take the time to correct them. Because you can't just let it go, because then it's gone. So with accuracy, sometimes you can get by going, oh, I think I might be able to make it, I'm fine. I don't have to correct that before I can go. Yeah. With precision, you have to say, no, I need to correct that because it has to be precise. It has to be perfect. And that might take a little bit longer as you're trying to understand the errors that are happening, making the decisions to correct them, and correcting before you press the trigger. That makes sense. You can still do it quickly because I don't say it becomes all the way automatic, but your brain does start taking over pieces of it.
Yeah.
So unless I'm making egregious errors, or something really weird is going on with me, normally it does automatically correct a little bit, so I can go a little bit quicker. That said, because of the way my mind works, I tend to have to do it a little bit slower because I need time to process it and just see as those errors are coming. So.
Thank you. That's awesome. All right, we're going to talk about the mantra now, but I just want to review really quickly. We start in subconscious aiming city, and we get on what highway? Watch it to keep it highway. And watch it to keep it highway means what? Do I have to consciously focus on my sight? No, I get my sight on target and I just watch it to keep it because I aim subconsciously, right? And then I get to the bridge of decision and I can only continue on my journey to Precision City if I make the decision to go precision to Mr. Troll and then he'll let me cross. Okay, awesome, thank you, you can put that down. All right, so let's talk for just a minute about trigger. So there's a little debate that can happen in the gun world. Is trigger control important or isn't it important? Chuck Pressburg, I think, says it best, and I'll tell you what he says here in just a minute because I like it. First, though, I want to mention some of the not old, but they'll be mad if I say old. Some of the originators of the modern concealed carry movement. One of them is Tom Givens, and he says 95% of good shooting is trigger control. That's a direct quote from him. Is trigger control. Okay. Dave Spalding, if you don't know him, I'm sad you don't. You should get his book. It's called Handgun Combatives, and it's really great. And you've missed the opportunity to train with him because he's retired. So he's the second one, I guess, now that's retired. Anyway, independent depressing of the trigger finger straight to the rear without interruption of the target bore alignment is the most critical aspect of shooting. However, it's the hardest. Okay? Then, Dave Spalding says, isolating the trigger finger takes an incredible amount of concentration. Normally, are our hands designed to work like this? No. Or like this? We do this all the time, don't we? We don't do this very often, right? All right. And then we already talked about 1/4 of an inch of muzzle movement at 20 feet is 6 to 8 inches at the target.
Can you say that again?
Which one?
Just
The
that
distance?
last
Yep. So I'll read it so I get 1/4 of an inch of muzzle movement at 20 feet. 20 feet away from the target is 6 to 8 inches on the target. So that can be from aiming here. If I just move it 1/4 of an inch when I'm shooting, that could have me hitting here or here, completely missing if I'm in a precision environment. Remember, we're talking about a precision environment right now. Okay. And then we saw what happens when Miss Annette was doing that, and she was holding the gun and she was bracing for recoil, right? So if we aren't able to override that subconscious bracing for recoil, it's gonna happen. And that moves the gun. Yep. And if we aim perfectly, but we still move the gun at the moment we press the trigger, we're gonna miss where we're wanting to in a precision environment, right? Yes. Okay, so you guys are all with me. Now I'm gonna tell you something briefly here. So Andy Brown, he wrote a book called Warnings Unheeded, and the book is about the incident that happened at Fairchild Air Force Base in 1993, where an aggressor entered the medical facility and just wreaked havoc there. And Andy Brown, he says in his book Warnings Unheeded, I think it's on page 3, he says that incidents of mass violence don't happen frequently enough in America that we need to be constantly fearful about it. But it does happen with enough regularity that we should at least have a plan or at least consider it. So not so much to be fearful, but something to consider, okay? So in his book Warnings Unheeded, he talks about that he was faced with a really tough decision on the day that the incident happened at Fairchild Air Force Base. He was a young military police officer, and he was on bike patrol in the housing area. And it was about 1 mile to 1.5 mile ride from housing to the medical clinic. And while he was on bike patrol, he could hear the calls for help coming across the radio. And he could hear screaming, he could hear the urgency in the dispatcher's voice, and he knew that it was awful. And so he began his ride as quickly as he could. And I really encourage you to get his book or even do the audio, the audio version is great too. You'll learn a lot from that. You'll learn about what happens to us, like perceptual changes that happen to us in a critical incident, that sort of thing. But as he arrives on scene, he can see the gunman. The gunman was armed with a rifle and a 70-round drum. And he can see the gunman getting ready to train his rifle on his next victim. And so Andy Brown jumped off his bike and he dropped to one knee and he drew his service semi-automatic, which was a Beretta 92, drew that, what? M9. And drew that gun and fired 1 round and missed, but not very far, just a little bit. And so he applied a little Kentucky windage, and the next round was a hit and stopped the aggressor right there. So that's a 72-yard shot.
After riding a bike 1.5 miles.
And all that adrenaline, 72 yards. So
having ridden a bike 2 miles to get there.
So would you think that did that happen because he was in an automatic motor program? No, he was shooting with precision, wasn't he? And did he make a decision to do it? Yes. He absolutely did. And do you think that he was thinking about very carefully about what he was doing?
Yes.
Yes, there was a big thought process going on there. So Chuck Pressburg, this is like my favorite quote. He says, okay, I'm not gonna use one word he uses, but I'll say the full quote. He says, I can mash the poop out of the trigger and hope that my master grip will keep my shots in the black. Or I can take an extra few tenths of a second and make sure it will be.
Wow.
So did Andy Brown just hope that his round was gonna go where he wanted it to go that day? No. He took that little bit of extra time, a few extra tenths of a second, to make sure that it would.
And Carrie, I think that illustrates exactly what I was talking about, the difference. Like when sometimes I will make the decision, I think my grip is enough here to overcome what I am seeing. And so I'm gonna go ahead and go because of whatever the time constraints, or I'm not in that precision mode. And sometimes it works out for me pretty well. And sometimes at the end I'll be like, that didn't work out. I thought I could swing it back in time, and I don't. But that's the accuracy environment. In the precision environment, the difference would be I would feel that things were going wonky and I would make the decision to correct them rather than hoping that I did have enough, or even using my experience to think, I think this is enough. It's correcting it to make certain that it's enough. Exactly.
Thank you, that was perfect. That was perfect, and there's a big difference, huh?
There is, and there's time for both.
Yes, absolutely.
And you can be quite accurate doing it the other way as well. You get pretty good with experience level, knowing that I've got enough grip here, what I'm seeing is enough, all of this is enough to get in that target. But if you want to drill that very precise hole, it's got to be that decision to correct those mistakes.
Yep, that's awesome. That's awesome.